What are your biggest challenges that you face around learning transfer? And we're going to be doing this just through simple hand ups kind of exercise. And we're just going to sort of gauge the room and then go into the areas that are most important for you, most important in terms of your needs. So, is your biggest challenge around linking learning to business objectives? Is that one of your challenges? If so, could you just raise your hand? Okay, we've got about 2 or 3 people, 4, 5 possibly, who raised their hand for that. What about the second one? A lack of senior leader buy-in. Is that one of your challenges? Yeah, a few more people who've raised their hand on that, okay. What about lack of line manager engagement? Oh, yes, I can see quite a few arms going up on that one. Thank you. Lack of learner time and capacity. My goodness, I think that's the biggest amount. Thank you. And last but not least, measuring ROI and impact. Quite a few hands as well. Okay, so I think we had the biggest amount of feedback here on this learner time capacity. But is there also something else that is a challenge for you when you're thinking about learning transfer? We've only picked out a few of the key ones that we hear about. Is there something else that is a challenge for you and that might be worth sharing with this community here? And if so, I'm very happy to hand over the microphone to you. Any other challenges?
Tech and tools.
Absolutely. So there's something about tech and how to integrate tech as part of the learning transfer. We will be speaking a little bit about tech in a moment. Thank you.
So we have a large volume of mandatory compliance training that has to be done on an annual basis. So everyone's a bit learning fatigued, I think, and a bit kind of overwhelmed by it all.
Thank you so much for that contribution. So a bit of learning fatigue for mandatory training that happens regularly. We'll be speaking to that right at the end of our presentation. Thank you. I think I had another hand over here.
Thank you. Around learner motivation, so if it's something that the organisation wants, but the learner is really just trying to tap into how we can get the what's in it for them out. So that's a bit of a challenge.
Thank you. So around learner motivation, any other challenges that we've got in the room? No. Okay. So I think looking at the time, I think what we're going to do is we're going to briefly talk you through our top tips. We'll make sure we'll give you quite a bit of attention when we get to lack of learner time and capacity. We'll be linking into motivation. When we're looking at ROI and impact, we'll be talking about tech. And we'll be, finding out about motivation as well. Good. So here are some of our top tips for linking learning to business objectives. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but please do take pictures if you'd like. These are some of the key findings that we're finding in our client work in terms of getting a clear understanding of your organization's business goals and the performance impact that is desired. Now, that sounds quite simple and straightforward, and often it isn't, because it means investing some time, it means investing effort, it means asking questions. And sometimes, in my experience, when I deal with clients, maybe whose industry or sector I don't know so well, it also means asking what feels like stupid questions. And that doesn't feel good, does it? Yet really important to understand, what does this business really want to achieve? Where are the points? Where does the CEO want to go? What's the vision for the next year, but also the next 3 or 5 years? How is tech, that is so important, right? When you look around world of learning, tech plays such a big role here in this space. How does tech align to it? How does AI come into it? Generative AI? All these questions. You can see we've got some pieces here around actively engaging with your senior leaders and higher management on here, seeking information about industry shifts. So a place like World of Learning, where you are learning today, we would just advise you, and this is what we're intending to do, to go back to your businesses and talk about what you've learned. Go onto LinkedIn and share your findings. right? Because you're creating some FOMO here as well. Other people will want to know what you've learned, and your senior leaders will want to know that as well. And finding the measures of success that align to business needs. Gillian, you've already mentioned that earlier when we looked at our habit framework. And this last point I just briefly want to mention because it's that cost of inaction that doesn't often come into business conversations, at least in our experience. Most people will want to talk about the impact, the learning impact, the performance impact, the return on investment. But what is that cost of inaction, right? And I do have a quote here, which I want to share with you. Sorry. John F. Kennedy, it's a quote that we haven't got on here, but John F. Kennedy once said, "There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction." So have a think about that, because inaction is comfortable, right? It's far easier not to do anything than to do something, right? You will all know about what it feels like being in the comfort zone. You will want to motivate learners to move into the learning zone without going into the panic zone. So think for yourselves, what is it that I can do to articulate that cost of inaction to my senior leaders? Moving on. Getting senior leader buy-in. Somebody came to our stand earlier and said, apparently a lot of people are speaking about that lack of senior leader buy-in. There was somebody called Jake who mentioned it earlier. Jake, if you're here, this is your point. And really what we see is a clear and strong learning strategy is the first step to solving this challenge. Being clear on how your strategy will tie in with the wider business goals and targets is absolutely crucial here. And this question, what's in it for leadership, will also appeal to the people in the leaders, right? What's in it for them? How can I motivate them? How can I appeal to the facts? Or how can I appeal with the facts, the evidence and the data, with the logos? But also, how can I appeal to their emotions, right? The pathos. And how can I bring my credentials of my L&D department, my HR organization to the table and appealing to the ethos? So really aiming to solve those pain points in your organization and making those clear and articulating those to your senior leaders is super important. Somebody mentioned motivation earlier. Making sure that you link the increases in motivation and engagement that you see back to your L&D initiatives is really important. Highlighting it, communicating about it, all of that will play a good role. Line manager engagement. Now, quite a few hands went up earlier. Line managers are crucial to L&D. They bring L&D initiatives to life. Not just in terms of setting performance objectives, not just in terms of rewards and recognition, but really in terms of learning and making learning stick. So they are a crucial stakeholder for you within the L&D space. How can you best communicate with them? How can you communicate, and talk the same language they speak? That is all about listening and really having those conversations in the first place. Clearly defining the need and what you need from them as an outcome is important. Giving them options. You could be doing A, B, or C. What would work best for you and your department and your team so that they feel a sense of freedom and autonomy of choice? And similar to our senior leaders, making them feel important. They are important. They are that bridge between the senior leaders and the base of the organization, and making sure that their involvement will make a difference and that they know about that. Cool, that's what we had for line manager engagement. And we wanted to show a quick stat here, which is from the Matrix Leadership Program that we've highlighted earlier. We collect lots and lots of data. And lots of impact data as part of our programs. This is actually being collected on a weekly basis because it's a 9-week learning journey. And you can see here, when people, when delegates have more than one conversation, there should be a 0 here and a 1 at the bottom. When delegates have more than one line manager conversation about their learning, their leadership capability and their learning in terms of the 5 different leadership capabilities that we've got as part of this program goes up massively by more than 40%. One conversation, one specific conversation with their manager about the learning they're undertaking. We thought that that was quite mind-boggling. We knew that would have an effect, but we finally actually have the data on it, and we were really excited to get that, so I wanted to share it with you. Learner time and capacity, here we are. I'll let you take those pictures. This was important for you earlier. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things on here. You will probably know all about the 70-20-10 model, right? Make sure that your learners know how they learn best. Often it's not the formal learning programs that will create the biggest learning. Often it's the peer learning. It's the line manager engagement. It's the learning on the job. It's learning as part of conferences like this one that will make the biggest difference. So highlight that to them. Show them the why. Why are we doing this? Creating the space for them. Designing transfer time into programs so that they can transfer the learning and not just be there in the classroom and when they have more formal interactions. Also letting the learners take the lead and making it interactive, making it fun, making it engagement, and providing that clarity on what's expected. So those are a few tips for learner time and capacity, and last but not least, measuring ROI and impact. And I just really wanted to highlight the using technology cleverly, because that was one of the points that was coming up earlier. And also highlight the point around asking stakeholders about the impact, because that's what we did. We've got one other little case study on here, and you can see one of the virtual classroom platforms that we use is Engagely. Engagely has a fantastic polling tool that we use as integrated polling on a live weekly basis, which has shown us the impact we're getting, the learning impact we're getting, and also highlights the learner engagement we've got in the classroom at any one point. That's fantastic for a facilitator to have, knowing that learners are engaged is hugely important. If you're seeing that engagement dropping, well, you can do something about it as a facilitator. So we would encourage you to sort of play with different platforms and classroom platforms, just to sort of try out what works for you, right? This is not the only platform we're using. This is one of the platforms that's working for us. Here we're looking at measuring one specific leadership capability within our Matrix program, and you can see this is something that we're actually testing on a weekly basis. So you can see these are some real figures that we can then feed back to senior leaders to get more buy-in from them. This is working because more than 70% are actually taking positive action within a week. Linking back to Gillian's point earlier about the forgetting curve, this is important. Otherwise, you end up with 10% of engagement and learning. Here, this gives you a brief view into what those weekly polls actually look like on Engagely. So you can see different options that people can click on. Have they applied something? Have they taken action? Have they applied the coaching process in a conversation because they've just learned about coaching, as an example? We then get the poll results as a facilitator, and we can then have a conversation about the things that resonated most. Or we can highlight something maybe where we get 0% and we can ask a question. What are the reasons for you not having applied the learning or not having specifically focused on something?